Welcome back for Hunter x Hunter Chapter 410 Talk. As expected, we're officially back on hiatus now, having gotten through another batch of 10 chapters. So we're going to have months to think about the position we've reached in the war and where everything is going to go from here, but I'm going to get my thoughts down right away, as you've come to expect. I can always revisit this video as we get to the end of the hiatus and see if my thinking has changed on any of these topics. That might be a fun comparison to make. But first off, let's look at how those predictions are doing. I'm getting full points for saying that not only did Borksen cheat, I think a lot of people guessed that part, but that Morena knew about it. I even pinpointed this piercing stare as the moment when Morena knew. I now feel very confident about that. When I made this prediction, I said I didn't really understand why Morena would let her get away with it. I basically just had a hunch that she must have noticed. But now we have our explanation. Cheating counts as a withdrawal from the game, so from that point on, Borksen was only free to answer yes or no, which is something Morena told her before she even explained the rules of the game. So that's that bit of setup from the beginning, paying off in the end. Unfortunately, I am going to have to rescind those points I gave myself for saying that Borksen would freely choose the yes answer, cause now we know she didn't do it on purpose. Instead, Morena's manipulation kicked in when Borksen tried to pick an answer that wasn't yes or no. Obviously she wanted the X card, but she wasn't able to choose it. Now, a wrinkle here is that Morena did still leave her with those two options, yes or no, and Borksen did apparently choose yes on her own. That part was up to her free will. So very technically, I was right that she would choose yes for herself, but the fact that manipulation got involved at all means this outcome is not in the spirit of my prediction. So I won't try to talk my way out of it. I'm giving up those precious prediction points. And while we're on the subject, I've got 3 notes on this twist now that we can look over it all in retrospect. First note. This manipulation component of the ability did not just come out of nowhere. Morena mentioned in 408 that her specialist ability combined elements from all 5 of the other Nen categories, so we could have already inferred that manipulation had to be involved somewhere. I know, some people were thinking the manipulation would be tied to the kiss, like the saliva itself increases your loyalty to Morena, but I never believed that myself, so I had no working theory at all for where manipulation was gonna fit in. That probably should have given me pause, I say in retrospect, but at the time I just glossed over it, like, okay, it's some of every Nen type, whatever you say, lady. So between this panel and the earlier one about withdrawing from the game, I do feel like the audience was given enough clues to set this twist up. I doubt that anyone really saw exactly where this was going, but we can't say it was impossible. We had the information, we were just given so much information at once that we didn't zero in on the most salient bits. Second note, speaking of giving out a lot of information at once, we shouldn't forget that Morena allowed the game to continue after the cheating took place, and then Borksen milked the Question A card for all kinds of info about the Hei-Li. Morena could have called out the cheating immediately, demanded a yes or no on the spot, and not shared, myriad details about the Hei-Li operation with this woman who's trying to stop them. But she didn't. She let the Question A milking proceed at Borksen's leisure, even though this was after the special martial law was declared and she probably had other things she could have been doing during these minutes. So this all makes me think that besides the Nen manipulation to get a yes at the end of the card game, there's another element of psychological manipulation going on where Morena wants Borksen to have hope. She wants her to think that she's got all this intel and so she has a real shot of taking down the Hei-Li if she's willing to really commit herself to the effort. And in this situation, committing herself will probably take the form of killing people for power. So all this manipulation is geared towards getting Borksen to cross that threshold and become a killer, when she might not be willing to do that if she felt like she couldn't stop the Hei-Li anyway. That's my best guess for why Morena gave away all this intel when she didn't have to. That it's sort of a motivator to make Borksen believe she can't afford to die, the intel she gained is too precious. And so if it comes down to it, she's gotta kill for the greater good. Which suits Morena perfectly because she needs Borksen to be a killer to get access to this specialist ability she apparently wants so bad. So we see this being spelled out in this chapter with Borksen thinking she needs an ability ASAP, and Morena thinking that Borksen's got a goal now, which she must think will drive her towards the main goal of killing people. Okay, third and final note on the twist. I previously mentioned how Borksen mimics Morena's habit, or running joke almost throughout this conversation, of answering ambiguous yes or no questions as her own subject. So Borksen says, no, it is not a mistake here at the end of 409. And now we know that this wasn't an intentional turnaround or defiance on Borksen's part, because she didn't actually mean to pick yes. We see in her head and she's aghast at this turn of events. That being the case, I think now we have to look at the end of 409 not as Borksen throwing Morena's words back in her face, but as Morena's words creepily emerging from Borksen without her having any say in the matter. So this moment absolutely does tell us about the power dynamic, but it's Morena's power being emphasized when we thought it was Borksen's. Morena is putting words in her mouth, she's putting her tongue in her mouth, she's putting her app on Borksen's operating system. I think we're supposed to understand all of this as a violation, including, making Borksen into a killer when she doesn't want to be one, as I just talked about in the previous note. So, Morena is terrifying, and Borksen's in a more desperate situation than we thought, but now we leave those two walking and talking so we can catch up with Benjamin, who's got 9.5 hours to resolve the whole succession war in favor of his illegitimate child, cause Ben himself is a dead man walking. I guess now we know the baby in Unma's room is Benjamin's. And real quick, we know this isn't Hulkenberg in Benjamin's body for a bunch of reasons. He's got Ben's guardian beast, he's acting like Ben, he's thinking like Ben, and Hulkenberg wouldn't care about getting his baby to inherit the throne because he's fundamentally against the idea of inheriting thrones. So this is the real Ben, and I've got 3 main questions about the desperate situation that he's found himself in. First, how did Hulkenberg manage to poison him? The timeline he gives himself matches up with the TSK bioweapon that killed Hulkenberg's body, but it'd be pretty crazy if Balsalkenberg personally delivered the dose, right? Even if he could get close enough in Balsamico's body, he wouldn't be walking away after that, and we know Hulk wanted to make a war-winning move. By the way, check out the parallel between Benjamin and Hulkenberg here. They both ended up in situations where they had a 10-hour deadline to secure victory. Anyway, sacrificing himself to poison Ben doesn't really win the war, so I assume Hulk found another way to do it, but I couldn't tell you what way that was. My first thought was that the Hulk follower in Vict's body could sacrifice himself to do the job, but it doesn't really make sense for Ben to let Vict get that close to him either. It'd be crazy to trust any soldier who's gone missing like that. So again, I'm coming straight off the dome here, and maybe I'll have a better idea months from now. But my working theory is that nobody carried out a shoe-based bioweapon attack. Instead, Hulkenberg rigged his own coffin with the bioweapon, knowing that Benjamin would open it up to verify Hulk's death with his own eyes. And that's why he insisted that only his private guards could handle the transportation of the coffin. This plan isn't exactly airtight, like what if Ben just tells one of his soldiers to open the coffin for him, just in case, but something along these lines would explain why these final wishes were critical for the plan, and it would explain how Hulkenberg can still be alive and trying to win. On that subject, what Ben's doing right now is hugely helpful for Hulkenberg, because if Ben succeeds at wiping out all the other princes, Hulk just has to keep himself alive and he'll be able to claim victory by default. Not to mention that Unma's got the Ben baby and Unma's in the tank for Hulkenberg, so Ben really has no chance of succeeding anymore. He's just kind of a puppet Hulkenberg's using to try and kill the rest of the siblings. Okay, speaking of keeping himself alive while the clock ticks down, that's the second question. Ben's apparently secured all but 4 of the princes already, so we gotta ask which 4. We don't actually know if Ben knows that Hulkenberg is alive, so he may or may not make the list. But let's start with the gimmies. We know he's looking for Lucerys and Zhonglei, so that's 2. He can't have secured Fugetsu yet, because he's about to try and take over the Ministry of Justice, and they're the ones hanging on to Fugetsu. That just leaves 1 more missing prince, and the best guess is Mariam, because he should be safe in his little pocket dimension. But that would mean Ben's not hunting for Hulkenberg or Saridnik, which is surprising because you'd think Saridnik would have eluded capture one way or another. I guess there's some world where Fugetsu and or Mariam have been secured, but my working theory has to be that they're still loose, along with Lucerys and Zhonglei. So we have to wonder what's happening right now with Saridnik and Hulkenberg and Wobel, really. Like, is Karapika under arrest right now? Actually, maybe all the detained princes have been rounded up in a room together, and this will be the first face-to-face encounter between Saridnik and Karapika. They've got to interact with each other at some point, right? We could even imagine them needing to work together to escape execution as this martial law situation continues to unfold. Karapika, Saridnik team up? Huh? Third and final question. This batch of chapters ends with a look into Kaiser's thought process. He overestimates how much time Ben's got, and then thinks he's just gotta make it through the day to reach the light at the end of the tunnel. Plus he's still got 1 final bastion. So, $1,000,000 question, what is Kaiser doing? The light at the end of the tunnel's gotta be the fulfillment of his mission, which depends on him escaping this Ben situation, but we don't know what that mission is, or where or what this bastion is that he can fall back to. I'm not going to rehash my theories about Kaiser working for Nasubi or Morena, because frankly I feel like I understand this guy less than ever now. We have not been shown what, if anything, Steiner did for him in this martial law situation that they discussed. At the most basic level, we can infer that Benjamin's a big threat to his mission, and so things are going great if a day passes and Benjamin dies. And maybe this final bastion is a resource to use against Ben, or a place to escape to and wait it out while the poison gets him. But being against Ben doesn't tell us who he's for, and we still have no idea what's going on with this robot heartbeat of his. I mean, it says a lot that this scene has the Zodiacs stepping right into the fray and maybe standing between Ben and the success of his coup, and yet it's Kaiser that the chapter ends on. He's the one to watch, he's the one whose mission we should be thinking about as we transition into this next phase of the story. And think about it we shall in the coming months. I got a little giddy in previous videos saying, oh yeah, this is going to be a super short hiatus, couple months maybe, but it's been pointed out to me that this batch of chapters was announced a month and a half in advance. So if I believed the manga was coming back in 2 months, I'd have to believe that we're getting an announcement like that in like 2 weeks. Clearly that doesn't sound right based on the updates Togashi is giving us on Twitter, so I'm going to dial down the optimism a little bit. I'll still say I think we're getting 2 sets of 10 in 2025, so I think we're going all the way to 430 next year. And if he's able to maintain that pace and give us 20 chapters a year, you know, that would be cause for revelry in the streets. It still wouldn't mean the arc is ending anytime soon. I don't even think we're at the halfway point personally, but that's another topic. I can make a whole nother video about how long this Succession War story is going to end up being, and, you know, maybe I will. Either way, thank you all for joining me for these chapter talk videos these past 10 weeks. Thank you especially to my lovely patrons. The manga's going on a break, but I'm not going anywhere, so subscribe for more Hunter x Hunter videos to tide you over in the months to follow. We're going to get through the rest of my Succession War recap series, which is a deep dive on each member of the Hueguo family. After that, I've got plenty more ideas, you know, topics about the Succession War, topics about earlier parts of the manga, but if there's something you really want to see me do a video about, let me know in the comments. You let me know what the people demand, and I'll know what I should prioritize, you know? And if you just can't get enough of me, then as a last resort, you could always check out my Patreon. I've started posting exclusive videos there every month for the super fans to enjoy. So you can look forward to all of that, but for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.